Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapon online. All systems nominal.
Mission critical. Mission timer expiring. Incoming transmission.
Greetings, Mech Jacks and Mech Techs. As we are all aware, this world is chock full of C-bills, more lore than you can shake a room full of bookshelves at, and ample mech designs for every taste, flavor, preference, or crazy person. But how these mechanical monstrosities come together is an art unto itself. It's BattleTech, so of course there's enough charts to fill a book. Or 7. Yet, when you get under the hood of these machines, knowing how they go together and why they go together can assist in your own personal quest for glory. Quest for pay. Quest for glory and pay. Now, for ease of mental digestion, I'll be breaking down this primer into a few sections. A brief overview of what a mech is. Major considerations: era, tech, and tonnage. Mandatory stuff: walk, run, jump. Yeah, gonna need a few parts for that. Motive choices and mandatory control systems. Putting the thinking into the machine. Cockpits and pilots. From the bones to the skin. Structure, Myomer, and armor. Now to give it some teeth, weapons overview. Critical space. It's critical. Now putting it all together. Showing how it works with some ubiquitous examples. Is it a mech or a super customized killing machine? And some tools and toys to assist. So, what is a mech? Shortest answer, walking war crimes. A little more specifically, to quote Professor Dietrich Mathers from one of his Stuttgart School of Defense lectures, a BattleMech is a giant armored robot toting huge guns piloted by those modern knights called MechWarriors. Personally, I would say a fusion-powered multi-ton stompy military-grade murder machine that mostly does what you want it to do and falls over just a little bit more often than you would like it to. Sorry, pilots, I've known way too many Solaris jocks to call every one of us modern knights. Okay, back on topic. Mechs are huge, typically humanoid, combat vehicles that stand from 8 to 14 meters tall, 26 to 46 feet tall if you like that measurement system. Mechs are typically bipedal, but quad configurations do exist. And since we'll be keeping this to a intermediate plus level, I'll provide references to where you can find more information on quads and other zany construction varieties as appropriate. or as I remember.
Self-destruct sequence
A key point that I will most likely repeat throughout this primer is that the available space in a mech is finite. Tonnage be damned. It doesn't matter if the mech is a 15-ton Flea FLE-14 or a 100-ton Atlas AS-7D. The total tonnage is but one of the limiting factors when putting together a mech. At least each core component gets its own annotation as to where it goes. Mostly. Now, whether you're a MechWarrior stomping around in the current age of the Yo Clan, or running a sim of trying to keep the machines of the Second Succession War operational, the availability of what can go into a mech can vary drastically. For example, that Kleiner plasma cannon was not available to the Inner Sphere Brain Trust, commissioned by General Alexander Kerensky pre-2755, while they were figuring out how to make the first Atlas. Short form, the toys and tech you would like to use may not be available in every single era. There are reasons why the word lost tech was coined. Sure, a major reason was our ability to put high damage ordnance onto high-tech manufacturing centers and their staff, not to mention any collateral damage regarding infrastructure and educational enterprises. Small aside, if you're ever bored and would like some supplemental data on how humanity got really good at relegating areas into the past tense, check out the history of Lone Star. We killed an entire planet via biological warfare. 0 bombs required. Now, regarding the clans and their tech, it really depends on where and when something was made to determine what nice shiny toys can go into these war machines. Nowadays, even with Clan Diamond Fox, Clan Sea Shark, those clan merchants who'd rediscovered the joys of capitalism, Uncle Nicky be damned, praise the founder, do have a rather robust catalog for your complete mech engineering desires. Now, someone's going to turn this phrase into a drinking game, but you all do what you want on your free time. It's your choice. Tonnage matters. Quite a bit of a mech's construction is related, directly or indirectly, to the total tonnage of the design. Direct examples include the fusion engine size and the weight of the internal structure, while an indirect example would be the tonnage of the mech's gyroscope. To repeat, tonnage matters. And once these broad limits are in place, the next question is simple. What does each and every mech absolutely need before it can stomp, turn, jump, or avoid being an expensive lawn ornament? Alright, now to get into the nuts and bolts. Literally. Alright, engines. Engines are the heart of the mech. From the half-ton Omni 10 to the massive 52.5-ton LTV 400 fusion engine, every BattleMech needs something installed to make the Stomp machine go stomp. Bigger engines generally mean faster machines, but the bill comes due in tonnage, space, and design compromises. For newer mech jocks staring down a hex map, movement is measured in movement points, or MP. Moving forward into clear level terrain usually costs 1 MP. Turning one hex face costs 1 MP. Spinning around to swat the light mech trying to backstab you costs more. If your neurons are still rebooting after an ammo explosion and you accidentally pirouette in place, congratulations, you have just spent a pile of movement doing technical interpretive dance. Engine rating is built from walking MP, not running MP. Think of walking less like fetching a drink from the cooler and more like a steady combat jog. Sustainable, controlled, and not quite panic sprinting through incoming fire. Running MP is 1.5 times walking MP, rounded up. So a 4 walk mech runs 6, a 5 walk mech runs 8. A 6-walk mech runs 9. You get the idea. For those who prefer real-time combat sims, top speed is still simple enough. Running MP times 10.8 gives kilometers per hour. A mech with 6 running MP tops out about 64.8 kilometers per hour. A little speed demon with 15 running MP is screaming along at 162 kilometers an hour, which is fast enough to make both your tech crew and your insurance adjuster nervous. But target, the engine chart has a ridiculous number of ratings on it. Which one do I need? Now remember the chant. Tonnage matters. Engine rating equals mech tonnage multiplied by walking MP. A 50-ton hunchback moving at the classic 4.6 profile needs a 200 rated engine, which is why so many variants are hauling around a Nissan 200 or equivalent. A 100-ton Atlas crawling at 3.5, and a 75-ton Marauder outpacing it at 4.6. Both land on the venerable 300 rated family, like the Vlar 300. Same rating, very different personalities. That engine choice sets the pace for the whole design. Go faster, and you spend more mass before you have even mounted armor, weapons, heat sinks, or the pilot's questionable snack storage. Go slower, and you free up tonnage, but now you have to survive being the easiest target on the field. Now for mandatory components and some optional extras. We'll start with internal structure, the bones of the machine. Every BattleMech starts with a chassis that defines where everything can hang, bolt, route, be desperately crammed into the last minute, etc. The structure scales with tonnage, which means bigger mechs pay more just to exist before they start doing anything useful. And by scaling, I mean exactly that. 10% of a mech's total weight is allocated to internal structure. 20-ton loop pinata, locust, 2 tons of internal structure. 75-ton Marauder variant, 7.5 tons of internal structure. Tonnage matters, and the skeleton collects its fee up front. Now, with the bones of a mech, you do have options. Even though the inner sphere lost its technical aptitude and tools for a while, internal structure does come in multiple flavors, most famously Endo steel and its derivatives. Endo steel is lighter than standard internal structure, but it pays for that weight savings with a sizable increase in bulk. Depending on whether the Endo steel is clan grade or inner sphere grade, you'll need to scatter a sizable, or downright significant, amount of that bulk through the chassis' critical slots. And for gyroscopes, the unsung hero keeping your towering murder machine becoming an expensive lawn ornament, that's the gyroscope. The gyro is tied to the engine rating, which means heavier and faster designs pay more for balance. Any pilot who has taken a gyro hit knows exactly how important that is, usually while they're falling over in a very educational way. Speaking of education, the gyro you need is proportional to the rating of the fusion engine installed. The math is mercifully simple. Take the engine rating, divide it by 100, and round up. So that half ton on the 10 engine still needs a 1-ton gyro. A Magna 250 needs a 3-ton gyro. And the super expensive LTV 400 needs a 4-ton gyro. Well, at least the gyroscope catalog only has 4 options in it. And heat sinks. These are often overlooked until you fire one weapon too many.
Heat critical.
Heat sinks are the cooling blood of the mech, moving blistering heat away from critical systems, ammunition, and the poorer pilot trying to not become soup. By construction rules, every BattleMech must carry at least 10 heat sinks. In fact, the first 10 are free. Battle damage notwithstanding, there is a very reasonable chance you will want more than the bare minimum. Double heat sinks are all the rage, and if you can get your hands on clan grade doubles, your engineers and techs may briefly stop cursing your name. Bonus: for every 25 points of engine rating, 1 heatsink can fit inside the engine without occupying critical space elsewhere. Want to keep those precious critical slots free? Bring at least a 250 rated engine. Bigger engines can hide even more heat sinks inside them, but you still pay the tonnage bill. And next up, jump jets. Optional, but beloved by pilots who enjoy ignoring terrain, surprising enemies, or discovering new and exciting landing mistakes. A long time ago, in a comic book far, far away, Superman did not fly. He jumped. These will not make every mech leap tall buildings in a single bound. Sorry, urban mechs. But they can turn bad terrain into merely annoying terrain. Jump jets come in flavors and limits. The heavier the mech, the heavier each individual jump jet becomes. Up to 55 tons, each jump jet weighs half a ton. For mechs weighing 60 to 85 tons, each one weighs a full ton. And for the rest of the assault mechs who dream of aeronautical escapades, the 90 to 100 tonners, each jump jet weighs a whopping 2 tons. So those are the flavors. The limits are simpler. Standard BattleMech engineering allows a mech to jump only as far as it can walk. And the mech needs 1 jump jet installed for each jump movement point. Now, improved jump jets exist too, because of course they do. And those stretch these limits in their own wonderfully expensive ways. And I'll point you towards the right references for their own wonky shenanigans. Now with cockpits, with only a handful of exceptions, blame the wobbies, BattleMechs are piloted machines. The cockpit gives the MechWarrior controls, sensors, life supports, and a front row seat to every terrible decision the design team made. It normally resides in the head, which is comforting, right up until someone starts aiming large weapons at it. And all that fancy equipment required for seating, informing, protecting, and occasionally terrifying a MechWarrior, 3 tons. Standard. Next up, we got Myomer and Enhancements. Standard Myomer bundles wrap around the internal structure, drink power from the reactor, and work with your actuators to make the mech move. Enhancement systems either replace standard Myomer or add booster hardware so the machine can sprint harder, hit harder, and otherwise behave in ways that make maintenance chiefs develop facial twitches. There are 3 main flavors of enhancements worth calling out here. The simplest is the Supercharger. Basically a bolt-on for the fusion engine, like something your distant ancestor would have slapped onto a hot rod and then immediately lied about to their insurance company. Now for the low cost of 10% of your engine's weight and tonnage, you can run at double your walking speed. Just do not abuse it. If the Supercharger breaks, it takes part of the engine with it, and the tech base starts using your name as a warning label. Next up is MASC. Myomer Accelerator Signal Circuitry. Think of it like listening to a mandatory training audio log at 1.5 speed. A little weird, occasionally alarming, but it gets the job done faster. Same general premise here. The Myomer control signals are pushed harder, and the mech gets where you want to go quicker. At least with MASC, overuse usually wrecks leg actuators instead of chewing directly through the engine. The cost for this Marvel module, critical slots and tonnage equal to the mech's total tonnage divided by 20. The truly brave or deranged install both MASC and the Supercharger. Both can break, but firing simultaneously, you're moving at 2.5 times the mech's walking MP. Finally, there is triple strength Myomer. It turns out there is a grade of Myomer that gets stronger, or if you want the polite engineering phrasing, reacts to electrical charges at an approved rate when the mech is running hot enough. The payoff is excellent. A bit more speed and much nastier physical attacks. The catch is you have to keep the mech riding a very specific heat band, which means your systems are already fuzzing up while you're trying to maintain the perfect temperature for violence. Effective? Absolutely. Efficient? And it depends on how much you enjoy flirting with the chance your ammunition starts cooking off. Rules-wise, triple strength Myomer is incompatible with MASC and takes up 6 critical slots because of the extra bulk required. Superchargers, however, are not Myomer based, so they remain on the table if you want to pair heat-powered punching with questionable acceleration decisions. Next up, armor. The skin, shield, and first line of "Please do not explode today." Armor keeps fragile internals from going kaboom at the first sign of trouble. Think of plate mail protecting a knight. Then remember what happens when something bypasses the plate, punches through it, or simply hits hard enough that the knight reconsiders career choices. Armor gets the majority of the math when dealing with new mech construction, sometimes even bordering on algebra. Yay. First, armor capacity is exactly 2 points of armor per 1 point of internal structure. And internal structure ratings are based on, you guessed it, the total tonnage of the mech. Limbs are pretty simple. X internal structure means a maximum of 2x armor. A 50-ton hunchback, for example, has 8 internal structure points per arm, so each arm can carry up to 16 armor. Torsos are more troublesome for mech engineers at the drawing board stage because they have 2 distinct sections, a front and a rear, that need to be covered by 1 internal structure rating. Keeping to that hunchback, at 50 tons, a side torso has 12 internal structure points, while the center torso has 16. So those side torsos have a maximum of 24 armor points to split between front and back, while the center torso has 32. Now those hunchy engineers took the big gun towards enemy approach, slapped 5-ish points on each back panel and called it a day, leaving a maximum of 19 armor on each front side torso and 27 armor on the front center torso. Now just remember, even if a mech can fit X amount of armor, it does not always mean that it does. And the head? No matter the chassis or tonnage, each BattleMech's head has 3 internal structure. And somehow, gloriously, the engineers can slap 9 whole points of armor on it as well. An AC-10 hit to the head is not guaranteed to kill the pilot, but anything that does more damage than that will. And once the engine, structure, gyro, cockpit, movement options, Myomer, and armor are accounted for, the design finally has the minimum anatomy of a BattleMech. It may not be good yet. It may not even be sensible. But it is no longer just a pile of very expensive parts waiting for someone to blame procurement. Now, with the mandatory madness bolted down, wired up, and maybe on fire, we can move to the part everyone pretends they were not waiting for. Weapons. Weapons. The fun stuff. There are 4 main classes of weaponry available to BattleMechs: energy, ballistic, missile, and physical. Some techs might want to include artillery-based systems here too, but most of them still boil down to gun, warhead, or please stand still while physics happens. We have covered the mandatory anatomy of the machine. Now, we finally get to discuss how it reaches out and ruins someone else's day. Still, I would be remiss in my duties if I did not wedge a small weapons primer here. I have run some numbers, and a deeper dive into damage, heat, tonnage, ammunition, and battlefield context could make a good supplemental lesson later. Let me know. It might be fun. For now, remember the holy trinity of mech scale weapon design: tonnage, critical space, and heat. Every weapon asks for some combination of those 3, and every good design knows which bill it is willing to pay. Now, exceptions always exist, because BattleTech loves exceptions the way MechWarriors love blaming terrain. As a general rule, though, more damage means more construction pressure. Whether the output comes from a larger autocannon bore, more missile tubes, or some other questionable delivery system,
Mission failed.
higher damage usually demands more tonnage, more critical space, more heat, or some deeply annoying combination of the three. If ammunition is involved, the shots per ton usually drops as the maximum punch rises. Now, the cleanest, most math-friendly examples are the original purveyors of long-distance death and harassment, long-range missile launchers, LRMs. They scale neatly from a 5-tube harassment device to 20 tubes of pain raining damage from over half a kilometer away. Between those two bookends sit the LRM-10 and LRM-15, giving us 4 tidy examples for a quick breakdown. Alright, so, simple. We have the LRM-5, LRM-10, LRM-15, and LRM-20. The 5 has 2 tons and 1 critical slot for the launcher. Maximum damage of 5 points in 5-point clusters, and 2 heat. 1 ton of ammunition provides 24 shots. The LRM-10, 5 tons, 2 crits, maximum damage of 10 points in 5-point clusters, with 4 heat generated. 1 ton of ammunition provides 12 shots. The LRM-15, 7 tons for the launcher, 3 critical slots. Maximum damage, 15 points, seeing a trend here, in 5-point clusters, and 5 heat. 1 ton of ammunition provides 8 shots. Then we have the LRM-20. 10 tons for the box, 5 critical slots to fit it in your mech, maximum damage of 20 points in 5-point clusters, generating 6 heat. 1 ton of ammunition provides 6 shots. Now that's a tidy progression for these pain rain machines, and the ammunition counts make sense once you look inside the bin. 24 shots for an LRM-5 means the bin holds 120 individual missiles. Run the same math for the larger launchers. Pattern holds 1 ton of ammunition, 120 missiles. Doesn't matter the launcher. Now please note, the math will not always behave this politely for other weapon systems, but LRMs give us a useful baseline for how weapon trade-offs usually reveal themselves. But target, which LRM is best LRM, you ask? Now, before I answer, we need to detail one more weapon, the Inner Sphere Standard Medium Laser. This 1-ton workhorse of the universe carried its reputation all the way up through Kerensky's children coming back home and throwing a tantrum, and past that. 1 ton, 1 crit, 5 damage, 3 heat. No ammunition because laser, and range brackets of 3, 6, 9. Damn, she's fine. Now the metrics for the Inner Sphere Medium Laser. Damage per ton, 5 damage, divide that by 1 ton, rating of 5. Damage per critical slot, same math, 5 damage, 1 critical slot, rating of 5. Damage per heat generated, 5 damage divided by 3 heat equals 1.67. Pretty solid numbers, straightforward, makes sense, easy math to boot. Okay, so let's run those numbers for an LRM-5. However, being a cluster weapon, we do have to recognize that it is rare for all the missiles in a salvo to hit. The top of the bell curve for missile hits, 7 on a 2d6, means 3 of your 5 missiles hit on average. So that is 1 damage cluster of 3 points of damage. Now, because the launcher needs 1 ton of ammunition to function, the full system is effectively a 3-ton equipment package. 2 tons for the launcher, 1 ton for the ammo bin. The launcher itself occupies 1 critical slot, while the ammo bin occupies another. So the full package uses 2 crit slots. That gives us the following rough comparison for the Inner Sphere LRM-5. Damage per ton is 3 damage divided by 3 tons, so 1. Damage per crit slot, 3 damage over 2 crit slots, 1.5. Damage per heat generated, same math, 3 damage over 2 heat, 1.5. So compared with a medium laser, the LRM-5 is a reach out and tickle system at potentially extreme range. It is less efficient on raw damage density, but if you need to put damage past 9 hexes, any LRM system is going to outperform our beloved Martel medium laser by virtue of actually reaching the target. Numbers matter, but context gets a vote. And since the invisible spreadsheet is already open, let's go a couple steps heavier and look at the LRM-20, Little Miss Pain Rain herself. So 10 tons buys the launcher, but again, the box arrives empty. Each ton of ammunition gives 6 shots, and I have set a completely sensible yet arbitrary goal of carrying at least 10 full salvos for battlefield needs. That means 2 ammo bins and 2 more tons on the bill. The launcher also generates 6 heat every time you press the pickle button, compared with the medium laser's Cozy 3. And since we're operating in the 32nd century, everyone should have reasonable access to double heat sinks. So we can budget 2 extra heat sinks to cover the heat increase, and then some. Finally, because we want to be better than average, we can bolt on an Artemis 4 fire control system for more damage when the missiles actually connect. We have 10 tons for the launchers, 2 tons for the ammo, 2 tons of extra heat sinks, because we know that we are not firing one thing at a time, ever, and 1 more ton for the Artemis 4 fire control system. 15 tons of fun, and enough ammunition and heat management to keep the forecast rainy. Thanks to Artemis and the bell curve, we are now expecting about 16 points of damage from definitely not medium laser range. So, the math. Damage per ton, 16 damage. Over 15 tons, so that's 1.07. Damage per crit slot, 16 damage over 14 critical slots, that's 1.14. And damage per heat generated, 16 damage over 6 heat equals 2.67. Now, because I know no one out there is taking notes, I'll be putting up a nice little graphic on the screen, comparing these things together. And it has a 4th column that we haven't spoken about yet. That final column uses the geometric mean of the 3 listed efficiency values. It's useful here because it rewards weapons that perform well across multiple categories, while penalizing weapons that are excellent in one category and weak in another. I included in the Inner Sphere Gauss rifle on another row to show how a highly skewed profile, big tonnage, big damage, almost no heat, looks once the numbers are balanced against each other. Oh, P.S. I will not say which LRM delivery system is the best, because that is highly subjective to each individual mech, mission, pilot preference. Now, under the efficiency framing used here, the LRM-15 with Artemis 4 FCS, that's the most efficient LRM frame I've found. Alright, this numbers exercise matters because each weapon family pays the Trinity differently. Energy weapons usually trade ammunition freedom for heat. Ballistics usually trade lower heat for mass, ammunition, and explosive consequences. Missiles trade precision for clusters, range bands, ammunition planning, and some explosions. Physical weapons skip the firing line entirely and ask whether the chassis can turn mass, speed, and questionable judgment into direct violence. So, with the Trinity in mind and the numbers suitably abused, let's give a brief overview of the weapons families that can adorn our lovely murder machines. Now, energy weapons are lighter than many alternatives, blessedly free of ammunition explosions and cursed with a sizable heat bill. Lasers, PPCs, flamers, and their many cousins will let you keep firing as long as the reactor is online and the heat scale has not climbed into pilot now resembles soup territory. The design question is not whether they can keep shooting, it's whether the rest of the mech can dump the heat afterwards. Now, ballistic weapons, heavier, louder, definitely dependent on ammunition. They often buy damage with mass instead of heat, which is lovely right up until the ammo bin cooks off and your design becomes a cautionary diagram. Every ammunition bin is both a resource and a liability, so ballistic heavy designs need to plan for endurance, protection, and what happens when the dice get rude. Now, missiles, they come in short-range flavors, long-range flavors, streak flavors, specialty ammunition, multi-mode options, and enough cluster charts to make a periphery flea market look organized. They reward planning more than brute force. Range brackets, ammunition load, cluster behavior, special munitions, those all matter. You will somehow almost always run out of LRM ammo before SRM ammo, but more than a few peers will still insist SRMs are more fun. Because the added bonus, SRMs let you bring liquid war crimes in the form of Inferno ammunition. Now sure, a mech can pick up a tree and swing it around like a club. Better yet, it can pick up the arm or leg blown off another mech and swing that around like a club. But target practice, I'm on a barren moon, no trees, and I'd rather my lance mates keep all their limbs, you say. Now fret not, good mech jock. Who needs a tree when we can mount a sword or an axe directly to your mech? Physical weapons turn chassis mass, actuator health, movement, and critical space into close range consequences, which is a fancy way of saying the axe still has to fit in the spreadsheet. Of course, weapons are only fun if they actually fit. Tonnage may determine whether a weapon can be carried at all, but critical space determines whether it can go where you want it. Every designer eventually discovers that these are two very different problems. Speaking of space, each mech chassis can only fit so much. An easy example is to compare the legs of two completely different mechs. From hip to foot actuator, they're the same in layout, just maybe a different scale, and both only have a little room left for that extra fun once all the required bits are installed. That remaining room is aptly named critical space, and it matters just as much as tonnage, although tonnage matters. A weapon can be light enough to fit the spreadsheet and still be too bulky for the location you want. This is where elegant designs become compromise festivals, and where engineers learn new profanity. Which brings us back to the real puzzle of mech construction. Balancing tonnage, space, required systems, weapons, armor, heat, and whatever questionable life choices led you to this design in the first place. Alright, you now have a better than passing understanding of the parts. So now it is time to jigsaw puzzle them into a functional design. The engine sets the movement budget, the structure and armor set the survival budget, the cockpit and the gyro keep the thing upright, mostly, and weapons, ammunition, heat sinks, and special equipment while those fight for whatever tonnage and critical space remains. All of it must stay at or under the mech's total tonnage, because tonnage matters. So simple, right? Right? Alright. Well, the easiest way to see those trade-offs in action is to stop talking theory. Start looking at familiar designs. Let's be practical. Existing mechs are often the best teachers, even when they teach by being weird. So, before we dive into specific chassis, let's keep this primer's central chant loud and clear. No, not that one. Every BattleMech is a balancing act between tonnage, critical space, heat, armor, mobility, and firepower. Yes, tonnage matters. Every example to follow is a different answer to the same question. Which compromises was the designer willing to make, and which ones were they apparently willing to inflict on everyone else? So we'll visit a few inner sphere oddities and staples. A Wasp, a Phoenix Hawk, and a Stalker. So from theory to record sheet, you'll see how the same construction rules can produce a fragile knife fighter, a nimble command mech, and an assault mech with strong opinions on how tonnage should be spent. We'll start small, because light mechs are where the design math gets mean in a hurry. With only 20 tons to spend, every half-ton decision shows up on the battlefield wearing a neon sign. So first up, the Wasp. Wasp WSP-1W, specifically. Now, the first Wasp arrived back in 2471 as the first BattleMech to mount jump jets. For our purposes, though, we're going to look up the WSP-1W, a Haustavian field refit produced for Wolf's Dragoons, and an excellent reminder that technically functional is not the same thing as recommended for combat deployment. At 20 tons with a 696 movement profile, the WSP-1W screams non-combat zone deployment only. It carries 6-hole small lasers, which is barely more threatening than a very motivated maintenance crew with flashlights, because chargers punch harder. Pair those with a 6-hex jump and base 10 single heat sinks, and a full jump followed by an alpha strike of nothing but small lasers pushes the little bug 2 notches up the heat scale every time. Now, walking or running is fine. Jumping directly into a serious fight? Questionable, because that is how you become a cautionary silhouette on someone else's after-action report. So, alright, breaking this bug down. 696 movement profile, so that's 6 walking MP. Walking MP times tonnage gives us a 120 rated engine. Yeah, probably a GM 120 fusion engine. And that power source weighs 4 tons, leaving us 16. 20-ton mech spends 2 tons on internal structure, leaving 14. That 120 needs a 2-ton gyro, so that leaves us with 12. Cockpit claims at standard 3 tons, leaving us with 9. 6 jump jets, that's 3 tons, that leaves us with 6. 6 small lasers cost another 3. And now we're left at 3 tons remaining. So at this point, the engineers finally remembered that armor exists, poured those last 3 tons into it, and called the bug done. Alright, quick armor aside, because this is where the spreadsheet starts demanding tribute. Armor can be allocated in full ton or half ton blocks. 1 full ton of standard armor, 16 armor points. Half a ton's 8. Easy math. Armor also has weight-saving variants, most notably ferrofibrous and its derivatives. Now, unlike Endo steel, which saves weight directly, ferrofibrous gives more armor points per ton. Inner sphere ferrofibrous provides 12% more coverage, while clan-grade ferrofibers provides 20% more. Now naturally, because BattleTech never gives you a gift without hiding a bill in it, those savings come with critical space bulk needs. 14 critical slots for Inner Sphere ferrofibers and 7 for clan grade. But this Wasp, 3 tons of standard armor. So that'll give us 48 armor points to spread amongst the chassis. If that does not sound like much, it's because it is not. A 20-ton chassis can carry up to 69 armor points. Nice. Which can take, actually 4.13 tons of standard armor before landing rolls and practical construction blocks, etc. However, let's see. Remember when I warned you that armor gets most of the math? This is why. If the engineers had started with survivability instead of treating armor like the leftovers tray, 4 tons of standard armor would have provided 64 points of coverage out of that 69. Nice. Or about 92.7% of the maximum. If they had insisted on full coverage, possibly after a sudden expansion into the mech insurance market, they could have allocated 4.5 tons and reached the chassis limit. That extra fraction does not get magically spot welded on the machine, though. It's wrote off as profit, and you don't get to see it, because that 4.5 tons still counts against the design. Bummer, huh? Alright. Yay, bug mechs. Always so much fun. Alright, so from there, let's jump to something with more room to breathe, and much more clan-grade temptation. The Phoenix Hawk C is a good reminder that saving weight does not automatically mean spending it wisely. So the original Phoenix Hawk entered service in 2568, but the C model comes from clan development during their golden century. Although someone may have been breathing too much actuator degreaser when they signed off on the final weapons package, but clanners are gonna clan. Like most Phoenix Hawk designs, the C model sits at 45 tons with a 696 movement profile. The important caveat is that everything here is clan grade equipment, which gives them options for lighter engines, lighter structure, better heat sinks, and just enough space magic to make Inner Sphere procurement officers weep into their requisition forms. Alright, mathing. The 45-ton mech with 6 walking MP, it needs a 270 rated engine. With a standard engine, that would have been a 15-ton commitment. But the Phoenix Hawk C uses a clan grade XL engine instead. And engines like structure and armor, as you have seen, have their own weight savings trade-offs. XL engines are not bolt-ons, they are separate engine classes and different budget levels. They come in clan grade and Inner Sphere grade versions, with the Inner Sphere later adding light engines and the truly cursed XXL engine, because apparently quality assurance needed a hobby, or a vacation, or both. But XL engines are glorious and dangerous in equal measure. They weigh half as much as standard engines, but they're bulky enough to spill into the side torsos. Clan grade XL engines occupy 2 engine critical slots in each side torso, while Inner Sphere grade XL engines occupy 3 in each. Now the practical difference is brutal. A clan mech with one of these can lose one side torso and keep trying to murder you, while an Inner Sphere mech with an XL engine cannot. It's on the ground. But back to the bird. With 45 tons and the 6 walking MP, Phoenix Hawk C needs that 270 rated engine, but the Clan XL version weighs only 7.5 tons instead of that 15. So that's going to leave us 37.5 tons. Clan Endo steel drops the internal structure from 4.5 tons to 2.5 tons after rounding, leaving 35. That 270 engine needs a 3-ton gyro, so we're down to 32. Clan double heat sinks fit inside the engine nicely because the rating's over 250. So all base 10 clan double heat sinks fit perfectly inside it. Tucked nice and neatly into the power plant. The cockpit still costs 3 tons, leaving 29. 6 jump jets cost 3 tons and 6 critical slots, leaving 26. And finally, the designers chose 9 tons of standard armor. 144 armor points out of a maximum 153. Reasonable. About 94.1% coverage. So that leaves us 17 tons for the boom boom. However, here is where the design starts smelling strongly of recreational actuator degreaser. The Phoenix Hawk C carries 2 clan grade Ultra AC 2s, each with their own ammo bin, plus 2 medium pulse lasers and 2 machine guns, fed by a single half-ton of machine gun ammunition. Not sure if I'm going to call that 17 tons of fun. It's 17 tons of something. And most of that tonnage is trying to deal damage by 2s. Sure, a clan grade AC2 can reach out past 3/4 of a kilometer. But AC2s are almost all their flavors are among the least efficient weapons available. Hats off to the 6 of you out there who love them. But that same 12 tons spent on autocannons and ammunition could have supported 1 clan grade ERPPC with enough heat management to fire it consistently, nearly quadrupling effective damage output from this mech. Especially with Ultra AC2s landing both their shots less than half the time. And for those familiar with ballistic ammunition volatility, this clan grade fly swatter does come with one small mercy. Clan space engineering magic includes free case wherever you need it, costing no tonnage and no critical slots. Good thing too, because this bird is carrying ammunition in a chassis that very much wants to stay airborne, upright, and not converted into an expensive caution flare. Finally, we can throw on enough tonnage that the question changes. The Stalker is not struggling to exist on scraps. It is deciding how to turn a mountain of tonnage into sustained threat without becoming its own fireworks finale. So the Stalker STK-6M, as I like to call it, the catapult's bigger and angrier cousin. Now the Stalker first stomped off the line at 2594, slowly, naturally. It earned a reputation for trudging towards the enemy like an old horror movie antagonist, while continuing to bring more and more damage to bear. It also earned a less flattering reputation for turning ammunition storage into light shows, visible from the nearest jump point. And the STK-6M is what happens when the Helm Memory Core was feeding upgrades back into the design process. This variant dates back to 3062. And it shakes up the old Stalker formula with newer toys, and quite possibly with feedback from combat commanders. Or from someone finally finding the quality assurance sticky note buried under 3 centuries of paperwork. This is where deliberate design choices, dare I say good design choices, start showing up clearly. At 85 tons, even with weight-saving technologies available, the engineers kept the original 255 rated fusion engine, standard internal structure, and standard armor. They did not chase every possible savings option. They saved the upgrade budget for something the Stalker desperately needed: double heat sinks. Alright, numbers time. An 85-ton mech with a 3.5 movement profile needs a 255 rated fusion engine, and that weighs in at 13 tons. So that leaves us with 72 tons to spend. Standard internal structure costs 8.5 tons, so we're down to 63.5. Cockpit and gyro, both 3 tons apiece, so down to 57.5. And then the armor question came up, and the answer was apparently yes. 16.5 tons of standard armor fill each and every 263 possible armor points. 1 point gets wasted, but with that much plating, who was really counting? So, after that, that leaves us with 41 tons for the fun stuff. But before we detail those teeth, I have to say, this is an engineering team I can respect, mostly. They kept the bulky standard bones and engine, but used the remaining room with purpose. Enough ammunition, enough heat management, and just enough critical space discipline to make the whole monster work. They could not have done this if they had tried to save weight with Endo steel, ferrofibrous, XL engine, whatever. After everything is installed, this design still has only 4 critical slots open. And that's after they remove the lower arm and hand actuators for both arms. This is not flashy optimization. This is a jigsaw puzzle done right. Okay, back to the teeth. Oof. For long-range bombardment, the STK-6M carries 2 Artemis 4 enhanced LRM-15s with 3 full tons of ammunition each. An ER large laser can fire freely at nearly the same range bracket, and once the missile bins run dry, the pilot can wade forward with the ER large laser and the 5 ER medium lasers without pushing the heat gauge past nominal. That's the point of the double heat sinks. The Stalker does not just have more weapons, it has the cooling to use them. Now, the ammunition layout is where the old Stalker fireworks reputation still peeks through. Case does protect the side torsos, covering 4 tons of LRM ammunition from becoming a Bright Horizon event, but this variant carries 6 tons total. 1 extra ton of LRM-15 ammunition is tucked into each arm. Presumably, pilots are expected to burn through or dump the arm ammunition first before the battlefield turns those limbs into palliative care pamphlets. But suddenly the decision to answer the armor question with all of it feels less like excess and more like professional courtesy. Now that these basics make a bit more sense, if not, rewind, watch it all over again. Customization becomes less about throwing shiny parts at a chassis and more about choosing which compromises you can live with, which ones you can mitigate, and which ones you're willing to inflict on everyone else. With things making a bit more sense now, we can start juicing up a mech with intent instead of panic. Faster engines, alternate structures, exotic armor, upgraded heat management, and different weapon packages. All change the machine. But every improvement asks for payment somewhere else, so it's time to turn some knobs, spend some money, and pretend procurement is not already watching us with narrowed eyes. Then we'll build a custom design to call our own. preferably one that survives first contact with both the enemy and the construction roles. The goal is not to memorize every exception. The goal is to understand the shape of the trade-offs well enough that when a design looks brilliant or cursed, you can explain why. Now, I hear there are some people over in Galatea City who occasionally put together themed mech construction contests. If this primer helps you earn a fancy little badge, be sure to let me know. Now, this time, we are going to throw what we have learned from those 3 examples into something of our own. No more politely dissecting someone else's design choices from a safe distance. We have not done a heavy mech yet, so 65 tons sounds like a good place to make questionable decisions with competence. For tech, we'll go one step further and build a mixed tech monstrosity. Inners for a base, clan grade space magic where it helps, and a current era parts catalog, because no time like the present. So, we have our constraints. 65 tons, current era access, inner sphere foundation, and just enough clan hardware to make the invoice look like a war crime. Let's get the frame moving before we start arguing about all the fun stuff. And I think logistics even has a small pile of OEM Thunderbolt parts in the back, so we'll use that as our main chassis as well. 65 tons is solid. But today's battlefield moves faster than the museum piece era of walk slowly and hope honor saves you. A 5'8" movement profile, it feels right. Jump jets can wait. We will decide later whether the mobility is worth the tonnage and the critical slots. And since we have access to clan toys, let's start with a 325 XL clan engine purchased from those glorious Diamond Shark traders nearby. First choice, first bill, 12 tons spent. That engine gives us the speed profile we want, but it also commits the design to a familiar bargain. Excellent mobility, lower mass than a standard, and side torsos that suddenly deserve very polite treatment from enemy gunners. Internal structure comes next. Outside of XL engines, nothing saves weight like clan grade Endo steel. So we will buy our 3.5 ton skeleton from those merchants as well. That brings us up to 15.5 tons spent, plus a fresh critical space headache we may have to respect later. Cockpit and gyro going next, needing 3 and 4 tons respectively. So that brings us up to 22.5 tons spent. Since we are installing expensive bits, and I like the idea of giving enemy pilots a migraine when they try to target my mech, stealth armor, that's looking attractive. It behaves like standard armor in raw coverage. 16 armor points per ton, but it is bulky, needing 12 extra critical slots, 2 in each arm, side torso, and leg. It also needs an ECM to work. Angel ECM, that lets the armor stay stealthy while helping swat away Artemis FCS and C3 networks. So that'll join the bill too. 13 tons of armor gives us 208 points out of a possible 211, and the Angel ECM adds 2 tons. Damn, this adds up fast. We've already spent 37.5 tons. That is the stealth bargain in a nutshell. Harder to hit, nastier to house, and already chewing through space before the weapons even show up. Subtlety, apparently, is bulky. Enhancements? Heh. Triple strength Myomer and the Supercharger. Because restraint is for people with smaller repair budgets. TSM costs no tonnage, but it does eat 6 critical slots, while the Supercharger adds 1.5 tons. So that puts us at 39 tons spent, with a design that clearly wants to run hot, run fast, and kick someone hard enough to make the after-action report use poetry. There we go. Mandatory equipment is complete, and we have 26 tons remaining. This is where temptation gremlins start whispering. Fortunately, we are not spending it like we're making a Phoenix Hawk C. Now, because we want to run warm for the TSM without becoming ammunition dependent, the first weapon pick, clan grade ERPPC. 15 damage, 15 heat, 6 tons, 2 critical slots. Now we'll pair that with a clan grade large pulse laser, because killing light mechs at range before they start backstabbing you is not cowardice. It is preventative maintenance. So that'll add 6 more tons and 2 more crit slots. So we're now at 51 tons spent. 14 tons remain. Now, before we get too deep into the weapons candy bowl, remember that stealth armor? When active, it makes shots against you harder at medium range and significantly harder at long range, which pairs beautifully with the ERPPC and large pulse laser. The trade-off beyond the bulk required ECM is heat. That stealth system generates 10 heat every turn it is active, which means we need to go back and check the heat bill before we melt down right after power up and shooting. Running adds 2 heat. That ERPPC brings us to 17. Large pulse laser adds 10, bringing us to 27. Turn on stealth armor and we're baking at 37 heat generated while still only carrying the 10 base inner sphere double heat sinks. So that leaves us 17 heat in the red. No bueno. However, we brought a big engine. 325XL can fit 13 double heat sinks internally. And right now that looks like a very good idea. 3 more tons spent, leaving us at 11. Now the design is starting to show its personality. Stay hard to hit at range. Build heat on purpose, and use that heat to make the Myomer angry. This is not heat neutrality. This is heat choreography. Now for the close-in package. 2 medium lasers and a small laser will give us some backup damage when it's time to get personal. They also can be used to help keep us near that sweet +9 heat band when it's time to prime TSM for the kicking position. That adds another 2.5 tons, leaving 8.5 tons remaining. Now, since we're trying to avoid ammunition dependence, an inner sphere grade laser anti-missile system pairs nicely with the ECM suite to keep the bees away. I'll call that 1.5 tons well spent, leaving 7 tons remaining. And you know what? Let's cancel that order for the clan grade Endo steel. This design can work better with more room to breathe. Now, returning to standard internal structure does raise the structure weight from 3.5 tons to 6.5 tons, so it's costing us back 3 tons and dropping the remaining budget from 7 tons to 4, but the critical space pressure eases. And that heat profile still looks a little spicy. So, 4 more double heat sinks it is then. We can now wick off 34 heat every turn, although we may still need some trigger discipline if the laser AMS is swatting away the bees. Without the laser AMS firing or stealth armor engaged, a full alpha strike generates 32 heat while standing 2 or 34 heat on the run. We've got 17 double heat sinks now, so we dissipate 34 heat. So the running alpha is heat neutral before stealth armor or laser AMS enters the conversation. So we can run around at range with stealth armor active while firing the ERPPC and large pulse laser. Machine's just going to run only 3 heat into the red each turn. By the end of the 3rd round, you, or the battlefield, have decided whether the answer is staying at range or committing to point-blank violence. TSM's primed for 26-point kicks, and the Supercharger can spike the machine now up into a breathtaking 12 running MP burst to close the gap. Now, if you need a one-turn version of this nonsense, run the machine, keep the stealth armor active, fire the ERP-PC, the large pulse laser, both medium lasers, and leave the small laser quiet. That'll generate 43 heat against 34 dissipation, pushing the mech from heat neutral straight to that wonderful +9 heat TSM threshold in one glorious violence escalating event. Just remember to turn off the stealth armor before you start demonstrating applied mech foo at conversational distance. Looking this over, I love it. It's pure Desgra. Stealth armor and enough speed to keep distance with hard-hitting long-range weapons, right up until the heat buildup is ready to pop the proverbial head gasket. Or you decide to go berserker. Because then TSM is online, and the plan changes from, you can't hit me, to, I'm going to kick you directly into my after-action report. Literal 26-point kicks and 14-point adrenaline-fueled punches are coming from this beast. Sure, the weapons may miss a little bit more from the heat interference, but omelets, eggs, all that. And that is the lesson from tuning instead of merely upgrading. The best custom designs are not piles of premium parts. They are coordinated bad ideas, with every weapon system helping the same horrible plan come true. I do like this idea, though. Genius? Probably not. Memorable? Oh, absolutely. I christened it Thadia. Don't make me sad, Thadia. Now with all that new shiny mech in the hangar, let's move on to some of the references and tools that can make this whole process survivable. Now, I firmly believe nobody should have to memorize every chart, construction exception, era restriction, and equipment table by sheer force of will. That way lies madness, illegal designs, and a tech crew quietly hiding your pencils. Use tools. Tools are not cheating. Tools are how we keep creative engineering from becoming, this mech is 3 tons overweight and somehow missing a gyro. Quite a few options for you. There are record sheets and official releases. Start with the actual record sheets whenever possible, or you can't find anything else. Those are the Battlefield Truth Document. Armor layout, heat scale, critical slots, ammunition, weapon locations, and all the little details that stop theory from wandering off unsupervised. PDFs, hardcovers, and the relevant rulebooks can turn, can you do that? Debates into, hey, watch this, escapades of rule-compliant chaos. Then there's the MegaMech software suite. You can use MegaMech, MegaMech Lab, and Mech HQ for construction checking, tabletop play support, and campaign or logistics tracking. MegaMech Lab is especially useful for catching illegal builds, tonnage mistakes, critical space problems, or making them, and or spreadsheet gremlins before they become public embarrassment. Need more sim time? Fire this up. Just remember, if you find yourself enabling double-blind rules, inclement weather, and sensor ghost, you're still only just scratching the surface of what this suite can do. Now, flex sheets. You can use flex sheets for clean digital record sheets and fast table reference during play. It is especially handy for managing armor, heat, ammunition, and damage without turning the table into a paper avalanche. As a confirmed MechLab Chaos gremlin myself, I especially appreciate being able to export custom creations into digital record sheets for immediate tabletop use. And the internet king of BattleTech, Sarna.net, use Sarna as your lore and reference rabbit hole. It's excellent for checking variants, eras, factions, equipment history, and why some design decision was probably someone else's fault back in 3025. It may not always be the first place to settle a rules question, but for context, history, and wait, why does this exist? Research? It earns its keep. And mechbay.com, another product from the MegaMech team, and the newest addition to our arsenal. Use MechBay for drill-down browsing, comparison, thinking through BattleMech designs in a player-facing way, including formations. It is useful when you want to examine machines, variants, and practical loadouts without immediately opening 7 books and a complaint form. It also helps when you need a flex comparable variant that assists with vehicle record sheet support. Recent login access makes it easier to save campaign hangers, build an op for the weekend, and then walk back into your friendly local gaming store with your campaign force ready to load right where you left it. Okay, short version. Books give authority, record sheets give truth, software checks the math, and reference sites explain why the math became everyone's problem. The tools will not make the decisions for you, but they will make the cost harder to ignore. That is the real gift. Not automation, but visibility. Congratulations, MechJacks. You now know enough about BattleMech construction to be dangerous, annoying at parties, and occasionally useful before the tech crew asks you to step away from the spreadsheet. The lesson is not that bigger is better, faster is better, client tech is better, in cases it is, or every problem can be solved with more lasers and a prayer to the heat scale. The lesson is that every BattleMech is a receipt. The engine bot movement, the armor bot forgiveness, the weapons bot threat, the heat sinks bot permission to keep things being loud. The internal structure, gyro, cockpit, and critical slots showed up with invoices and no sense of humor. The trick is making those purchases agree. If the whole machine wants the same battle, you may have a design. If every component is trying to star in a different infomercial, you have a Phoenix Hawk C and probably a design review with security standing by. The Wasp taught what happens when armor becomes the leftovers tray. The Stalker teaches that boring choices can be excellent when they make the whole machine work. Thadia teaches that a custom design should be a coordinated bad idea, not a parts catalog with legs. So ask the first designer's questions. What did it buy? What did it pay? And why was the trade worth making? Now, I keep a standing rule for this type of thinking. Not because it sounds clever, and not because I needed another numbered thing to wave around, but because I paid for it before I ever taught it. I rolled number 10. Count the cost before chance raises its voice. Hey, that's lesson 1. Tonnage matters. The battlefield gets the vote next. But before the battlefield ruins your theory, remember this. The construction rules already left fingerprints all over the crime scene.
Objective complete.